Welcome everybody. It's a good thing to talk about that we're going to do. We're going to talk about how to enjoy death. And the short answer is, the way to enjoy death is to prepare for it. And most of our life, it's a thought we'd rather not have, and a thought we'd rather not have about ourselves as an individual, as well as a thought we'd rather not have about our friends and family. But whether you're religious or not, spiritual or not, everyone agrees that this body will fail us at some point, right? There's absolutely nothing you can do to make this body continue. And we also know that healthy people die before sick people every single day, right? And that young people die before old people. Every single day this happens. So the assumption that when I'm old or when I'm sick, that'll be when I die, is actually nonsense. Yes? Percentage-wise, even, right? Even just thinking about your own life, of the people that you already know who have passed away, were all of them old and sick? Did some of them actually go a lot, we say, before their time, right? But what is their time? So our idea that we'll live to a ripe old age and die in our sleep, having done all of the work that we wanted to do, having really sorted out the meaning of life, told everyone that we love them, asked everyone we needed to ask for forgiveness, forgiven everyone we needed to forgive, sorted all our belongings, kissed our cat, die happily. That actually does not happen very often. That kind of death is not actually the most common kind of death. Tidy, organized, peaceful, gradual, painless, with all relationships very tidy, no loose ends. That doesn't actually happen very often. And yet that is most people's assumption or hope, is that they'll go in this nice, tidy, organized way, having said everything they needed to say, having sorted life out. And the thing is that the meaning of life or the purpose of life is not going to just magically reveal itself to us. Yeah, we have kind of an illusion that if we just kind of wait around long enough, the light bulb will turn on. Yeah, if we just kind of listen in a passive way, look around at stuff, that we'll just magically figure it out, and then when we figure it out, then we'll die. Yeah? And lots of people die without having ever figured it out. Lots of people die without knowing what it was all for. What was the point? Yeah, lots of people die unresolved, full of fear, full of anger, full of disappointment. And so the way that we don't do that is to plan and to organize and to start now by asking, what are the things I value? What are the things I value? And if I don't know what I value, okay, start there, right? If I don't even know what my priorities are, that's worth a thought. Yeah, it's worth a thought. If you died today, what would you leave behind? Yeah, if we just sit with that for a second. If you died today, what would you leave behind? Stuff. Right? There would be some stuff for somebody to have to deal with. Most of which they would probably not want to have to deal with. A couple of nice bits that would be argued about and dispersed. And then, piles of clothes, piles of papers, yeah, random technology, all the stuff on your cluttered hard drive, right? An unfortunate browser history, right? What would you leave behind? If you died today and someone went into your place, they'd be like, ooh, I like that chair. I'm taking that chair. Oh, that's a good iPad. I'm taking that iPad. What is all this crap? Why did they keep that? Oh, God, all right, Goodwill. Right, this, so besides our stuff, what would we leave behind? This is a really important question. What would people remember about us? What would they have learned about having been in a friendship, in a family with us, in a workplace with us, on vacation with us? What would we have left behind if they thought, oh, wow, they died today. I just really appreciated how, fill in the blank, what would they say? And these thoughts should give us a little bit of a cringe, right? They should give us a little bit of, oh crap, I don't know. Yeah? if you're thinking, oh, they would remember my love, they would remember my wisdom, they would have kind of an identity. If we have an identity of being someone who is a legacy of all sorts of benefit, that might be true. That might be true, but it's still worth examining kind of in a regular way. Yeah? So of the people you saw and interacted with today, if it was your last day on earth, would you be happy with how you left things? Yeah, were you nice to all the strangers? Were you a bit entitled, grumpy, impatient with some of them? Yeah? Were you kind to all your friends, or were you a bit abrupt with some of them, or a bit kind of distracted, or maybe even unkind? Were your last conversations you're proud of? Right? Because one of these days it is going to be the last day, and that could be today. You know, my dear great uncle, when he passed away, his last words were, "Stop, I have to go to the bathroom." Those were his last words. And he was a funny guy, so he was probably fine with those being his last words. But it's not like he was ready, right? He wasn't ready. So we need to get ready now. And what happens, the benefit that happens when you're ready now, is that automatically little stuff doesn't get to you. When you're remembering death every single day, naturally the fluff dissipates. Yeah, the little surface things that stress you out naturally start to not matter. You don't have to force them not to matter. You don't have to say, oh, I shouldn't worry about little stuff. It naturally doesn't matter. And you can prove this to yourself by remembering when you've had a big thing happening in your life. Yeah, if you've had a big thing happening in your life, like a new relationship, a new baby, a new death, a new career transition, a big something in your life, a physical accident, a mental breakdown, you know, if you've had some significant experience, whether good or bad, isn't it less likely for the little stuff to get to you? Yeah. For some people, it's the opposite. For some people, when something big has happened, they obsess about the little stuff because that's controllable. Yeah. But think about the other way around that can happen, where if you've just had a significant moment, suddenly there's a bit more clarity, or there can be. Yeah. Do you know this feeling? And so our practice as Buddhists is to try to remember every single morning to think, today I will die. Because an aspect of you will. You won't be the same person at the end of today as you were when you woke up. So there is a death every day. And was that person's life one that you feel satisfied with? Yeah. And then in the morning you think, okay, today I will die. Good thing I didn't die while I was asleep, but today I'm going to die. Yeah. And again, then you really very directly reprioritize. So when we're thinking about how to die happy, we're also thinking that our own death is not just about us. Yeah? There are people that would be affected by our death. Lots of people would be affected by our death. Even if we don't have any friends or family, the people that stumble upon us as we're dying, or the people in the hospital, are affected by our death. And so what if our death was something that left a legacy of people being inspired? Yeah, of people being curious, of people being uplifted. When I work in hospice in Brisbane, sometimes the nurses and the doctors talk for weeks about a beautiful death. Yeah, someone who really was loving to all of the staff, that wasn't entitled and full of demands, who just was very present with those last moments, and the people that happened to be there at the end were the people that happened to be the most important. Why? Because they were there. That's what made them the most important, is because they were the ones that were there. And it touches those nurses and doctors and, you know, creates an important significance. And also there's times when a death has gone very badly, lots of fear, lots of pain, and people are left kind of going, oh, was there something I could have done? Or, gee, is that the way I'm going to go? Or, you know, it really brings up stuff for people. So your death is not just about you. Yeah? And so it's actually worth thinking about, what would I leave behind if I died right now? Would I leave behind a lot of people who were worried about me? Worried that I'd really died unsettled, unresolved? You know? Or would I leave behind a lot of people who thought, wow, I'm glad I knew them, And I think wherever they're going, whatever is next is going to go well. Yeah. And even if you don't believe in rebirth, even if you don't believe in heaven or hell, if you don't believe anything happens after death, still we do leave behind some sort of impact in our relationships. And this is what we want to start to really look at, is what are we leaving behind in terms of our relationships? Do we have a legacy of bringing out the best in people? Do we have a legacy of punishing people for their weak moments? Yeah. Do we hold grudges? Do we actively criticize and cultivate a critical way of thinking? If so, then we are a divisive influence on a community. And that is the legacy we left behind. Whether named or unnamed, whether people knew it was you who were a part of it or not, we're leaving something behind ourselves. If you very quietly and politely, minding your own business, were just a harmonizing impact who consciously tried to bring out the best in people, tried to remember the best in people, tried to address conflict in a way that was collaborative, that was in terms of letting people off the hook for a weak moment, but still calling them on their stuff, clean, clear, unagitated conflict resolution, right? That has a huge impact on your friends and family and on this world. So remembering death immediately makes you say, how do I want to be in this world? How do I want to be in this world? Because whether we die or not, everywhere we go, there's an atmosphere we're creating internally and an atmosphere we're radiating externally. And that either is of use to this world or it's of damage. And most of the time, we're not very awake to the atmosphere we're sending out. Yeah, most of the time we're just kind of distracted, generally nice people, generally polite people, not trying to hurt people. We're not plotters, right? We're not thinking, how shall I hurt as many people as possible? We're nice people. But because we're distracted, all of our good stuff lacks power, and our bad stuff just comes in so easily we don't even notice its negative impact. Yeah, if we're a critical person, the distracted mind doesn't even notice how critical you are. Yeah, the kind of poison you're leaking everywhere. Remembering death wakes you up. Yeah, and you go, oh, what am I saying to people? How is it landing? Yeah. So this awareness of death, it brings a richness to the life. Yeah, there's a richness to life when you're remembering that you are immortal. Yeah, you're a mortal being whose body will fail you. Every moment is a bit of a magic moment because so many things could cause our death. The very things that cause life could actually be the cause of death, like our food, right? Food's supposed to give you health and vitality, but we could have food poisoning, something could go down the wrong pipe, we could have an unknown allergy, and the very cause for life is the cause for death, right? Our vehicles get us from point A to point B, but other people are trying to get from point A to point B, aren't they? And these roads are not sound, right? You saw as you came that just one part of the road just fell off, right? That could happen. It happened, right? It's not like that happened unrelated to a moment or people being around. The cliff didn't wait for it to be peaceful and quiet to fall off, right? It could happen any time. And so if you're thinking, this is it, really, I will never be any younger than this. I may never be any healthier than this. What am I going to do with this? Yeah, so, it also helps us shake ourselves out of the idea that we need to get certain things organized before life can start. Yeah, this is another illusion that we have, is that, okay, when I figured out this about myself, and this about my relationship, and this about my career, and this about my housing, and this about my diet, and this about my exercise, when I've got all of this figured out, then life will start, and I can start thinking about radiating a positive impact into the world. Yeah. As soon as I get it all organized, and of course once it's organized, it's going to hold still and be stable, of course, because stability is totally possible, right? Right? Nothing in your life has been stable, and yet you still assume stability is possible, right? You think, okay, once it's all organized and stable, then maybe I'll think about these deeper issues, about developing my human potential, about asking the meaning of life, about, sorting out my old grudges. Then, that's never going to happen, right? You're never going to be totally sure what's the best thing for you to eat. right? You're never going to be totally sure about how much you can push yourself in exercise and how much you can get away with not exercising, right? You're never really going to know. If you found another human to share your life with, you're never really going to perfect communication. You aren't, right? Because are you the same person every day? Are they the same person every day, right? What should you wear? Are you really going to know? Once you figure it out, will it not wear out? It's going to wear out, right? I wear the same thing every bloody day, and still it wears out, right? You still have to think about it, All these things, these tethers to an assumption of stability, we give so much effort to them, but it's an illusion that we'll get it all together. We have to be able to get ourselves in the place that says, this is as good as it gets, now let's focus on what's important, right? This is as good as it gets, let's move on to what's important. And then even more than that, how about we start with what's important, and maybe all those other things will fall into place, right? If you know what your purpose is in life, of what the meaning of life is, if you're oriented that way, what winds up happening is then you're of use to your community, then you're of use to your family, then you're of use to your relationship, then you're of use to yourself. But we go the other way around. We say, I'll get myself organized, and then worry about my partner, worry about my family, worry about my community, worry about the world. We go the wrong direction. Because it seems logical, right? It seems logical to work on yourself first and then maybe look to the other. But actually, if you experiment with what if I start with what is the greatest benefit I can bring to humanity in terms of the way I live my little ordinary simple life, then those other things are achieved as a byproduct. So it's worth experimenting. What if you swapped the emphasis? Yeah? What if you stopped obsessing about what to eat and just ate what was there? Had a go. It's going to work out or it's not, right? It's going to work out or not. And if it doesn't, you're like, oh man, oh well, another meal is coming up, right? Right? What if you put some clothes on and we're like, well, this worked. Yeah? Or, oh, this really didn't work today. Oh well, I'm wearing some clothes tomorrow too, right? Today was not blue. Blue was the wrong thing today. Tomorrow I'll try red, right? But I mean, how much time would be saved if we just stopped fiddling, right? We're just fiddling all the time, yeah? Face fiddling, hair fiddling, clothes fiddling, relationship fiddling, right? A whole life of fiddling, and then death comes and you think, gee, I wish I'd spend more time working on my hair, right? Yeah, are those your deathbed regrets? Right? So, this is the thing, is that immediately you reprioritize. Yeah, death is coming, you're like, all right, there is something clean about this, moving on, right? How do we really need to look? Friendly, clean, done, move on, right? Friendly, clean. That's a good standard, right? Anything more than that, it could be excessive. Yeah? Clean and friendly, tick. Yeah? Clean, optional. Yeah? Neutral even, yeah. And not even friendly, just neutral, not mean. Yeah, on a bad day. Yeah, but I mean, just imagine how much time would be opened up, yeah? And the scary thing is that when time opens up, if you don't know what the point of your life is, space opening up is frightening. Yeah, we fill in the space with all forms of entertainment, right? All sorts of different forms of sensory stimuli, because when there is space, when we're in a transition between one activity and another, especially if we don't know what the next activity should be, there's kind of a subtle panic. What should I do with my time? What should I do? What should I do? Right? Right? I have to feed one of the senses. Which sense will be the most satisfied? Eyes? Eyes. Let's look at something. Let's look at something. Yeah? Yeah? Tongue. Tongue needs a taste. Chocolate. Right? Yeah, we just basically rotate through our senses. That's most of our life, is just rotating through our senses, taking turns, feeding them. Yeah? And then when all of your senses are fed, then you freak out, because then what's left? Right? I listened to enough music today. I've looked at enough interesting things today. I've eaten enough today. Things smell nice. I have soft clothes. Crap. Right, now what am I going to do? Yeah. So the question of what is the meaning of life, we have to remember will not solve itself. Yeah, and by pushing it to the background and pushing it to the background, it means we miss out on having as powerful a life as we can have. It Doesn't mean we'll have a bad life or be a bad person or do anything particularly damaging. But if you're not thinking, what is the point of existence, or what do I want the point of existence to be, then you just become a consumer. Yeah? You just consume various things and don't put anything back out again. Right? And does it make you happy to think about living a whole life that way, as if you were an animal? You know, just taking, never giving. Yeah, just taking, never giving. To give that feels fulfilled and nourished when we're of some benefit to this world. And it's a deeper kind of contentment than just kind of surface sensory stimuli. You know, days when you've had a good project that was obviously of benefit. Yeah? Maybe just helping a friend move house. Maybe just cooking someone else dinner. Yeah? Maybe going on a bushwalk that you know someone else will really enjoy and making it nice for them. When you've thought about something more than yourself, often yourself winds up then it becomes less urgent. But some days you're not in the right mood to think about death, right? So you have to be skillful with yourself. The point is that in the morning you want to ask, what's the point? Yeah, you wake up, open your eyes, you're like, what is the point? Oh, I don't know. Right? What's the point? All right, how about creating some inner peace so that I have an impact on outer peace? How about that? Yeah? Okay, what's the point? How about figuring out the causes of happiness and sharing conditions for happiness? How about that? Yeah? How about being a positive influence in whatever group of people I'm in rather than a negative influence? How about that? You know, whatever, it can be very personal, right? But from a Buddhist perspective, we want to think, may every action of the day develop my potential to its utmost extent. Yeah, whatever my human potential is, whatever the potential of my mind is, may everything I do work to cultivate that, increase that. And so there's an awakeness about the day. Even if you're doing very ordinary things, they take on significance. Yeah, you're just going to the grocery store. If you're going to the grocery store with no purpose other than to get stuff for you and your people, then everyone who is in the way is an obstacle, right? If you're going to the grocery store because I gotta get stuff for my house and my household, then everyone else seems to be interfering with that. Yeah, if someone gets to the car park before you, if someone's in the line ahead of you, if someone's taking too long to browse the cereal, everyone becomes an annoyance when you make it all about you. Yeah? And on days when you feel like you've got plenty of time, on days when you're feeling at one with humanity, days when you're a bit relaxed, you're not so grumpy, right? And if someone is in your way, you don't even think of them as in your way, you just, oh, there's a person there, not an obstacle there. Yeah? Oh, someone got the car spot ahead of me, oh, for another one. You know, it becomes no big deal, right? You know those days when these little things don't become a big deal and other people are not obstacles to navigate around. Yeah? When we're just thinking about ourselves, everyone is a problem. Yeah? Or somebody that's helping me in this very self-centered way. Yeah? Oh, that nice person gave me a car park. They waited for me. Oh, that was nice. Now my life will be better. Now my day will be better. Yeah? We're so self-absorbed, thinking that being self-absorbed is going to help the self be happy. But the more self-absorbed we are, the more depressed we become, and the more irritable. Do you agree? Like if you just think about a rational day and an irrational day, or a self-absorbed day as opposed to a more expansive day, when are you actually the most actually content? Yeah. You know, and it helps to remember those days when you've just been in a mood, you know, when you've just been grumpy, irritable, or depressed, needy, depending on your style, right? Right? We have two styles, right? We have sort of grumpy and irritable, or needy and depressed, full of some, you know, amorphous melancholy, right? I'm not sure what's wrong, but something's wrong. I'm not sure what's wrong, but it must be your fault. One of those, right? Right? And sometimes both, they just take turns, yes. So the last time you were in that kind of a day, what were you thinking about all day? You know, it could have been, okay, various details of your life, but how many of the sentences started with what is wrong with people, or why can't I just? Yeah. You know? And it's not about objective problem solving, it's about your attitude towards the problem solving. Yeah, when it collapses inward to just this one, little things become a huge deal. Yeah. So, death is certain. If you just sit with, I'm going to die. This body, at some point, will be dust. This one right here that feels vibrant and full of circulation and full of breath, movement that has given me pain, that has given me pleasure, that has given me boredom, that has not ever been quite good enough. This one that is aging faster than I want it to, or this one that is so beautiful, or this one that is so ugly. This body, whatever your relationship with it is, will be dust. And all of the effort you put into it was basically like adorning a corpse on the way to the ground. Yeah, or putting on makeup as you fall off a cliff. Yeah. You know, then it starts to feel really silly for the body to be the main thing you think about. You know? And if you think about the way you relate to the bodies of others, the first time you meet someone, their physical appearance has some bearing on you, right? They remind you of something. There's something relatable or unrelatable about them. There are various features that you've been conditioned to find attractive or unattractive, right? But very, very soon after the first few moments, it becomes about the way they are, right? Not how they look. It's kind of how they use what they look like, yeah? Like a very good friend of yours might have a very, ordinary face conventionally, but if you love them, you love their face, right? And everything about their face becomes dear to you, yeah? And you might have someone in your life who is conventionally very attractive, but if you don't like them, you don't like their face, right? They could be on a magazine cover beautiful, but it's not giving you any pleasure to look at it, right? Symmetry, well done, Right? So if we're really honest with ourselves, like even from a kind of animal zone perspective, sure, we might care about looks for a second, but when we think about the actual people in our life, it's about how they are. It's really not about what they look like, hopefully, right? Unless we're really shallow, and probably if we're really shallow, we wouldn't have come to a Buddhist center, right? Right, or admitted to it, right? So, just really sit with, if I spend all of this time on my appearance, but not on the mind that uses this appearance, is that actually an effective use of my time? Yeah. How about I cultivate the qualities that make people feel safe, that make people feel relaxed, that make people feel happy, that engage with something more than just surface conflicts or basic animal needs? Then it starts to really make sense to you to work on something deeper, doesn't it? And so what is the meaning of life? Team? What are some of the meanings, plural, of life? What's the point?
I've thought about it a lot. I've thought about death. And I asked some of my friends this question.
Yeah.
How to die happy? How would they like to die? And from those responses, it seems like the meaning of life is to make meaning. Basically.
Is to what? Make you?
Make meaning.
Make meaning. Make meaning, yeah.
Create
Yeah,
meaning.
absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah. What else do you think? What is the point? What's the point? What do you want to do with this bag of bones? What do you want to do with the mind that animates it? Yeah, what do you want to leave behind? We might not be, powerful politicians or famous movie stars or brilliant scientists or someone that's of dramatic benefit in this world, but we could be a good friend, right? And we could learn, what does it actually mean to be a good friend? We could be a kind family member, someone who doesn't hold the grudge for 10 years, you know, or give the dodgy uncle the silent treatment. Yeah, we could be the one that actually tries to sort it out. Yeah. We could be the one at work that tries to figure out how to make an atmosphere that's collaborative rather than competitive. Right? What else? You know, I mean, what's the point, right? What do we want to do with this mind? What do we want to do with this heart? You know, and these are personal and private questions, but again, they will not solve themselves just by waiting. They won't solve themselves just by waiting, and death is not going to wait for you to get organized before coming. Yeah, this is a big lie in the world, right? That it must have been their time. What does that mean, their time? Yeah. What does that mean? Oh, they must have learned the lessons of this life. Tick, tick, tick. We either learn stuff or we don't. Death's going to come either way, right? Death is going to come either way. We have to be a bit pragmatic, right? A bit like a healthy cynicism. Yeah. So when you die, will you think, I wish I'd really done a lot more procreation and a lot more home maintenance projects. Feel bad about themselves. And, you know, I mean, right? Like, are we going to have this kind of, like, set of thoughts? Yeah. So just, if you just think about who do you think about in history, or who's alive right now, who you think is living a good life? That's a good life. Can you think of examples of people who you could aspire to, even if you don't want to do the same things? It's like you want to be those things. Can you think of some people that you're like, that's a good life? Yeah, it could just be your Nana, right? It doesn't have to be a famous person. Yeah.
Oftentimes it's young children.
Yeah, why?
Because they don't carry the stuff that we carry.
You sure?
Oftentimes I am very sure. They wake up every day, and today is typically a new day.
I love this idealism. I do. I love this idealism. But do you remember being a child?
I've been around enough children that I would say that's more of the case.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
What happens when they cry and
Yeah, I don't remember being particularly happy as a child myself, but I had some good times.
They have to cry for it. I mean, that's what children would.
They have to communicate.
There's definitely a directness, right? And we appreciate the directness of children and the present, the kind of being present of children. But, you know, if you think about, if you watched a kid a whole day, there's a lot of drama there, right? Right? I want this, I can't have this. I want this, I can't have this. Oh, now I'm tired of wanting and not having. I'm going to have a nap, but I don't really want to. You know, when they play, it's beautiful. When they play, it's so beautiful. But it's not without conflict. You know? And so the question is not whether you're right or wrong. The question is, what is it about that you like and can bring into your life right now? Yeah, what is it about your opinion of why children live the way you want to live that you can actually take into this present moment and bring forward? So whether you're right or wrong doesn't really matter. The point is, what are you loving about this idea? And can you bring it into today? And what would that look like? You know what I mean? Right? And so you just really sit with, okay, of that, what is possible? And of that, what is not possible and why? We did the effort enough that we actually have changed in some way. Do you reckon? Have there been any changes in your life from how you started out to how you are now? Some good news, some bad news, right? But there's change. Yeah. And so this is the first thing we want to sit with, is that from a Buddhist perspective, the mind is trainable. But the thing is that right now its most common habit is distraction and following what the senses say will be happy. That's its strongest habit. And that will continue to be its strongest habit until we kind of take the power back and decide to use it differently. And so what that looks like, again, is up to you, but to just think, all right, the mind will do whatever it's used to doing. It'll do whatever it's used to doing, so if I want it to do something else, it's going to take a fair bit of effort to rewire. But it won't be hard forever. Yeah, it won't be hard forever, because once you start getting some momentum in a new habit, that does become the new normal, and it becomes more and more effortless. So, if you've ever had a new job and had to learn new skills, at first, you're a bit overwhelmed and a bit tired, and it's hard to remember everything, and it feels like it's one ear out the other. But with repetition, it becomes more and more natural to you, so that at some point you can just do your job without even tons of planning, right? You're just onto it, right? But it's not like it started that way. It started with a lot of effort. Jetsuma Tenzin Palma would say it takes a lot of effort to become effortless. So if we remember, this is the fundamental way that we're wired, is that if we want to be able to do something, what it needs is effort and repetition. And anything that we are already doing is because there's been repetition, whether it's good or not. And that can help you really evaluate what is worth keeping and what isn't. So, is there anything that you want to definitely look at this weekend, or are really curious about from the Buddhist tradition that I'll make sure to include? Or any questions you have about tonight so far?
I have plenty of questions.
Sure.
I have, with meditation, because I see that on the schedule we do a lot of that. The practice of going into the dying process during the meditation, is that something that you will guide us through?
Yeah. No, I'll just do it. No, yeah, don't worry, I'll lead you through it.
It's not, because I've done a few meditation practices, and there's the Shamanta practice.
Yep.
And there's also the Vipassana practice.
Yep.
So are there elements of that in this?
Yep.
Session?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Mahamudra way of practicing on focusing on emptiness, is that going to be like pointed out through the meditation, through the course of the session?
Yeah, that's a good question. She's asking about will Mahamudra meditation be talked about? And basically, the thing that we're going to really look at is the good news about dying is that as you die, your mind naturally goes to its more and more subtle state. As you die, less and less distracts you naturally. You don't have to force it, right? As you're actually in the dying process, first of all, your sensory experiences stop being as prominent, and then your worldly worries become less prominent, and then your kind of basic stuff becomes less prominent until the very most fundamental mind is all that is left and all that is manifest, and everything else becomes like dormant or like sleeping. And when the fundamental mind is manifest at the exact moment of death, at that point we have a huge opportunity to do a more advanced meditation that if we tried to do right now at our level currently, it would be really, really hard and we'd be so distracted. But just naturally when we die, the mind comes to its most clear, its most fundamental. So we will talk a little bit about Mahamudra meditation in the context of bringing that to what's called the clear light mind of death. Absolutely. Because if we're able to do a good meditation at the time of death, that significantly influences our rebirth and significantly influences how powerful our next life is and what we're able to do in our next life, and might even lead to enlightenment at death. Not necessarily, right? So what we do is we rehearse, we rehearse our death, and we go through it as if it's actually happening, so that when it is happening, we're not scared. And when it is happening, we go, oh, now's my chance. I need to be awake. Yeah, now's my chance. Let's really use it. So a very good meditator could manufacture the subtlety that happens naturally at death. And so we want to be practicing in our life so that we're able to go to these deep levels of meditation without having to wait for death, right? We don't have to wait for death to have a good meditation, right? But if you miss your whole chance, right? If the whole life goes and never a good meditation, well, still, there's death, yay, right? Right? So if you miss your window, death is going to be an amazing window. But we have died many, many times and missed the window. So it's not going to just be useful just because it manifests. It'll just be a nice relief. right? And then back into the whole cycle again. Yeah, so we're going to rehearse death a few times and really get used to what does it look like. And there's a lot of similarities between just basic Western medicine and the Buddhist approach of what happens as a consciousness is no longer able to be supported by the elements in the body. So if you've ever been with a dying person or will be in the future, rehearsing this process will make it easier to be with someone else who's dying, more sensitive to what's going on with them, and more receptive to their needs at that time. So it's good for your own death, but it's also good because you probably will be around dying people at some point in your life, right? At some point you're going to see someone kick the bucket, and you want to support them rather than bring all your emotional baggage to their bedside, right? You want to help them have the best death possible. You don't want to just sort of weep and say, don't go, right? Because that's not super helpful. It's understandable, right? It's just not super helpful. Yeah. So yes, we're going to do that, not to worry. And the difference between shamatha and vipassana, we're mostly going to frame it in terms of there's single-pointed meditation, where you're just watching one thing, and then there's analytical meditation, where you're working your way through a series. And both of them are really useful for developing concentration, and both of them are very useful for getting to more subtle levels of the mind so that your life can have more power in an everyday way. So we'll do a bit of those meditations. And we're going to do some exercises to just kind of get organized, and a lot about how to start using this mind in a more beneficial way in this world. But I definitely am open to suggestions if there's stuff you want to make sure we cover, so speak up if there is. Or if you have any worries. Any worries? No? Anybody feel comfortable sharing why they were up for a workshop on death? Terminal illnesses, anyone? Besides just being alive, being a terminal illness. Or does anyone have someone in their life dying right now that they want to get organized for? You're just all in the mood for the chat. Yeah?
I lost my son at an early age, and because of that process, I'm fairly comfortable with death, and I'm fairly comfortable with what's going to happen at the end, but the more I know, the better off I'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, remembering our own death makes us make life more meaningful, but also remembering that our loved ones will die can help us be kinder to them. Yeah, can help us enjoy them more, can help us cut them some slack, and can also help us confront them sooner about things that need to be confronted. Do I want to let you live your whole life not knowing that you really annoy people when you do this? Right? But from a place of kindness and compassion, not a place of, I need you to be different so you're more fun. Yeah. Right, yeah. But yeah, so, also, remembering that the deaths of our loved ones are definitely coming. Again, all of this brings richness to the life. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll leave you for tonight unless you have any questions or any random, unrelated questions we can do for a couple minutes. Yeah, do you have any random questions before we call it a night? Tired, overwhelmed, vaguing out?
Oh yeah, that's a question.
Yeah.
What are you irritated by?
Today, or?
Let's say in the last month, what's been something that's irritated you? Because I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Because do you get irritated?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I get irritated all the time. Irritation comes quickly if I haven't organized my thoughts, and irritation doesn't have any room to come in when I'm organized. So what we're trying to do is preempt irritation and annoyance and depression and sadness by consciously introducing a mental atmosphere. So if I think the purpose of my life is to have compassion for myself and others, then when things don't happen the way I plan them, or when people don't do what I expected them to do, then it's all within a framework of how can I build my ability to be compassionate, and everything becomes useful. But if I forget that the point of my life is compassion, then when people don't do what I expect, or when things don't go the way I want, then there's that friction of grr, right? Or either let down sad or let down grumpy. But if I'm not in that fixation, then almost nothing can irritate me. So it's not so much about what irritates me as when is there an opportunity for irritation. Does that make sense? Right? So there's no opportunity for irritation if something else is driving. But if I don't make compassion drive, then the same old things that would bug anyone would bug me. Yeah. And so it's good to remind myself of that too if I am irritated, because if I am irritated, I might think, oh, it's because that guy cut me off in traffic that I have an unpleasant feeling. Forgetting that there's been a million times people have cut me off in traffic, and it does not annoy me because I was in a good space. So if it was necessarily that rude person doing the wrong thing that made me feel this way, I would always feel this way when that happened. So remembering that I take the power back from things not going the way I wanted. But mostly, I think irritation comes from plans not going the way we thought, or expectations not being met. Forgetting that plans and expectations are built on assumptions of stability, none of which has ever been the case. Right? Yeah, so, the hippies would say, right, go with the flow, right? Go with the flow is actually a very skillful way of living. Yeah. So, what irritates me? Today, I didn't expect it to rain, and then it did. I was like, oh man, I was going to go for a walk. Right? Today, that's what got me. And then I'm amused, and I think, oh, I'm going to let the rain destroy my peace, am I? Wow. Is that going to teach the rain a lesson? Right? But it's so interesting, right? When we get in a mood, we really blame things that are blameless and give power to things where the power is ours. It's so fascinating, eh? Sense of humor helps. Sense of humor helps. There I go again. Believing the illusion. Yeah. Any other randoms? Or follow-up?
Just one more.
Yeah, sure.
Do you ever find yourself getting attached to compassion? Do you find that possible?
Well, attachment by its nature is an exaggeration, right? And so can you exaggerate the benefit of compassion? This is the question.
I'd like to know if you have ever taught yourself if that's
Well, we would say that logically speaking, you cannot exaggerate the benefit of compassion. Yeah. But compassion is not the same thing as empathy. Compassion is not the same thing as, just wanting things to go well or wanting someone not to suffer. It's a bit more of a profound idea. Compassion is, may everyone be free of their suffering, with the background assumption that freedom is possible, right? And that suffering doesn't have to be ended for me to just wish them freedom from that. So attachment will co-opt compassion. Yeah? Attachment will say, may you be free of your suffering. Why aren't you free of your suffering yet? Yeah? And it'll get this kind of expectation and this kind of hook and this tightness around it. Whereas without attachment, compassion is just really open and free and like, but as a quality itself, no, it cannot be exaggerated. It's an interesting thing to play with, hey? So, how can you have the biggest goal on earth, but no attachment to it? The biggest goal, which is, may every single living being have perfect, absolute happiness, including myself. But that doesn't have to happen today, right? And it doesn't have to be my fault if it doesn't, or my success if it does. That's just what I want for this world. Kind of open-ended like that. Then everything is in a context that is really sustaining and really inspiring. But as soon as attachment says, and it's about me if it fails, or it's about me if it succeeds, then we become exhausted. Yeah, and then we get burnt out. So, we just kind of keep having this really open-ended, this is what I'm about, developing my potential so I can help all others develop their potential. And every moment of the day, whether I'm alone, whether I'm with people, whether I'm doing something boring, whether I'm doing something profound, doesn't matter what I'm doing. If everything is within that framework, then my life has meaning. And my life has momentum. But if I just kind of autopilot through the day, then there is no momentum and there is no meaning, and part of me is just a little bit sad or a little bit grumpy. Yeah? There's an edge of discontent. Yeah. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Anything else? Okay. So we'll start with a meditation tomorrow morning at 7:30, and it'll just be quite a gentle meditation, not to fear, and then breakfast, and the first teaching session will be at 9. So have a good night, and have a read-through of your course materials if you want to, but make sure you bring them back to the Gompa for the 9 o'clock session, because we all need to use them. And so I'm guessing Sarah has those for you, or?
Everyone who checked in has them, and
Okay.
everyone who doesn't can see me.
Excellent. So bring these back into this room by 9 o'clock tomorrow. All right. Have a nice night, everyone.